Lesson 72. In this lesson, you are learning your very first separate Greek pronoun, and that's the word ego, which means I. It's just like the word I in English, but it's not like the English word ego, like if I say that someone has a big ego. This Greek word has its accent on the second syllable, so it sounds like ego.
And this is one of the reasons why accent marks are very helpful, because with all of our English background, it's very easy to think, oh, epsilon, gamma, omega must be ego, but it's not. It's actually ego.
Right. Our English word ego really comes from the Latin form,
which is ego.
Yeah, it's related to this one, but it's ego. In Latin, the accent rules are different, so you get ego instead of ego.
Right.
So here's the big key thing we want to talk about in this lesson, and that is the fact that a me means I am all by itself. It doesn't need ego along with it to express the idea of I. Okay? The pronoun I is embedded in the word a me.
Mm-hmm.
So a me does not need the word ego, but you can use the pronoun ego along with it to clarify it, to emphasize it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's an optional extra that you can put in, right, Catherine?
Exactly. And as we mentioned in the last lesson, a lot of times you can use the pronoun as a way of emphasizing the idea of I. So, ego emi didaskalos. I am the teacher, and the ego is almost serving as the increase in volume when I say I am a teacher.
Right. A pronoun can do all the same things in Greek that it can do in English. It can emphasize, it can clarify, it can draw special attention to something. And that's why in the previous lesson, we looked at all the different things that a pronoun can do, just to raise awareness of how we can use them in speech and in writing.
Particularly since we use them all the time in English to the point that we can sometimes forget about their existence because they're just part of our everyday lives.
So now that we have the word ego, which is a pronoun that means I, and we have the verb eimi, which means I am, we're going to have sentences in which both of those words are being used together in the same sentence. Sometimes they'll be next to each other. Like in the first example here, ego eimi didaskalos. It's not a difficult sentence to translate because it's in basically the same order as it would be in an English sentence. Ego means I, eimi means I am, and didaskalos means teacher. Now, Catherine, we talked a while ago about how when there is a specific noun to be the subject of a sentence, we don't need to use the pronoun that is included in the verb.
Right.
And it's like that with pronouns too, right?
Yes, because if ego is present and eimi is also present, I don't translate it as I am.
Of course, if you're a beginner, you could start out that way. You could say, for the first example here, you could say, I am a teacher. And that would be a perfectly good way to just get started translating. But then you'll notice that you don't need to repeat the word I. You can just simply say, I am a teacher. You don't need to use the pronoun that's included in a me.
Exactly.
So in that fashion, the word ego and the word a me, they work together. In number 2, though, Catherine, the word order is a bit tricky, isn't it?
Right, because instead of being what we as English speakers would expect, it's ego didaskalos emi. So in English, we have to have I and am next to each other because we depend upon word order. But in Greek, because word order is flexible, ego and eimi are on either side of the word didaskalos. It still means the same thing, though. I am a teacher.
If we translated this into English and kept the same Greek word order, it would say, I, a teacher, am. Which is still understandable. It just doesn't sound...
I, a teacher, am.
It sounds like Yoda, right?
It does indeed.
I, a teacher, am. Learn Greek, you will. So it's not English word order, but it's still totally understandable if we did that in English, although it might not sound like normal English. But in Greek, this would be perfectly normal. There's
Yes.
nothing strange about this at all in Greek. This is a totally normal Greek word order. And so you get the word ego at the beginning, didaskalos, and then the verb at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you don't need to translate the word I, the pronoun that's included in a me, because you get that supplied by ego. And then we can even have the word didaskalos first. We could say, didaskalos ego a me.
Mm-hmm.
A word-for-word translation would be, a teacher I am. So, Catherine, just for fun, let's go through a few exercises just to clarify anything that might still be unclear to our readers and listeners. In number 1, we just have ego. That's just the pronoun only. This is not really even a complete sentence. It's just the word I.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no sentence here. It's just saying I.
Right. Number 2, however, is a complete sentence by itself because it's just a me, but because the pronoun is embedded in the verb, it means I am.
So that's a complete sentence. It has a subject, it has a verb, all expressed in one word.
Yes.
So in number 2, we did not need ego to be a separate pronoun. That's just a big thing I want to emphasize. But in number 3, ego a me, ego means I, and then a me means I am. So I am, but you really don't need the word I twice, so we just translate it as I am. This could also mean something like I exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, depending on the context, if I wanted to express in Greek that I exist, I could say ego a me, I exist. But it simply means I am.
Yes.
Or in number 4, Catherine, you could have a person that you're saying you are, or a thing that you're saying that you are, right?
Mm-hmm. And so ego e mi Alexandros is I am Alexander. But again, we don't need I twice. And so I am Alexander. And this might be there might be many reasons why we want to include ego as well as a me in the sentence.
In number 5, we have ego kadmos e me. Ego means I, kadmos is a person's name, and then e me means I am. So it says, I am Cadmus. It could be that the speaker of this sentence wants to emphasize that he is Cadmus and not someone else is Cadmus.
Right.
If a bunch of guys are standing around and someone says, hey, who's Cadmus? He might say, I am Cadmus. You know, he might emphasize that he's the one out of the group by using the word ego. We don't really know. It's just that that's a possible way to use it, right?
Exactly. We would need more context in order to figure out why the speaker is saying ego with a me, but that is one very likely context.
And with this book, we have lots of short exercises here that, as you said a moment ago, we just don't have much context. We're using these exercises just as a way to teach people the words, get them accustomed to the basics of how the words and the sentences work.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have much context. We're just exploring how these words work, what they can mean, and how they can express ideas in Greek.